Hi all, thanks very much for the invite to come here. You're probably wondering why there's a picture of an F1 car in front of you, but all will become apparent, and why I'm stood here it will also be quite relevant. Anyway, so what can F1 bring to the party? But first of all, I just want to give you an idea of how close competition is in F1. You know, we all watch F1, hopefully everybody in the room, but it's quite exciting on TV. In fact, the first race was last Sunday, which was quite exciting, new rules and all that. But start off with a blink. Everybody blinks several thousand times a day, and the average blink is about between 0.1 and 0.3 of a second. In F1, 0.126 seconds separated the first six cars during qualifying in 2024 in a particular race in Hungary. So that means that the competition in F1 is not in the first 84 seconds of a lap, it's in the last second, and the winners are in the last quarter of that second, and even less. In this case, if you were stood, and the reason for the blink, if you were stood in the finish line during that qualifying, and you blinked as Leclerc drove past the finish line, by the time you opened your eyes, 0.126 seconds later, which is a third of a blink, 6 cars would have driven past you. Now, what's the point of this? Is this is all about marginal gains in F1, right? And it will all become a little bit apparent as to why this is relevant to the room here. But it's in F1, everything is looked at to the tiniest degree. It's not that it's just good enough. It's the mentality that we bring to the whole game. Everybody's in the competition. Everybody's absolutely massive involved in the whole thing. So, first of all, nice pretty picture of when we won a race, and Seb's there holding the trophy, feeling really good about himself. And but why am I relevant here? So, before we do that, just going to start, well, that's a picture of when I was quite young in Patagonia, when I realized I wasn't going to be driving for a living. Actually, I wasn't the driver, but it gave me the message. So I decided to find something a little bit more easy to do, which I joined the Royal Navy, flew helicopters chasing Russian submarines around the world, which is apparently in vogue again today, and picking people off mountains up in Scotland and the likes. And then eventually I decided not to fly the airlines, so I went into industry, and I ended up working in all sorts of defense and aerospace companies, Lockheed Martin and so on. Ended up living in Spain, southern Spain, where we built and designed the A400M, which is now in operational use, very successful, very good. And eventually, as the stars aligned for me, I ended up in F1 purely by accident, I must say. But a place I never thought I would ever end up, because I'd always been in aerospace, defense, all these sort of things, nothing to do with F1. And we don't have the time really today to go into it in detail, but it was a nice coincidence. And I went in there, and I was in charge of the engineering team that designed and engineered the car you see on track. I'm not an engineer, I know nothing about cars, but I was in charge of the engineering team. And the reason I put all these pictures here is not to show that Seb's done some pretty cool stuff, which I've been quite happy to do, but is to tell you that, you know, I've been on both sides of the fence. I've actually been in the military, I've been in defense, and I've been in F1. And the point of this is that I've seen the mindset of how we get things done fast in F1, and I've been instrumental in, or I've been able to help shape that mentality and mindset. So I want to try and bring today some thoughts on how we do things in F1, and which might be applicable to the room. To start with, and we don't have a huge amount of time to go through all of this, so I'm going to rattle through it a little bit, but an F1 car has about 350 sensors on the car, everything from thermal, aerodynamics, pressure, lasers, speed, all sorts of things, even down to the heartbeat on the gloves that is picked up by for the driver. Everything drives data. Data drives technology and drives our innovation, which is very, very fast. And this is a few statistics: 1.5 terabytes of data per weekend, 350 sensors, as I said, 1.1 million data points per second, and it takes 300 milliseconds from the car to the factory. So it's not just the pit wall that you see on telly. It will be the engineers in a huge room with looks like something out of Star Trek, all with computers in front of them, and even everybody at their desks. We can follow what's going on at the track and get instant feedback from the car where we are. That means that the engineers who design those components are literally getting feedback from the front line, if you want, of what's happening to their component, and they can influence it. They can tell the engineers at the track, tweak this, tweak that, or they start working on feverishly on the next week's sort of design for the tweak of that component. So very quickly, how do we design things? What's the design loop and the sort of engineering loop? Is that you start with computer fluid dynamics, and it's basically a big supercomputer that models little tiny particles of air, pixels of air if you want, and how they interact with each other as they hit the moving car. And basically you get a model of what the air is doing around it. So you're trying to efficiently move that car through the air. And what this does is that it models it out for you. So what you're trying to do is you get these slices of air, see what happens. You basically want to avoid little turbulence in being created by the tires or by the shape of the car, because that makes tiny little bits of drag. Tiny little bit of drags means, thousandths of a second around a lap, and each one of those thousandths of a second is something that you're giving away to the competition. You eventually send it to the simulator. A real pilot actually drives a simulator, which, think of a PlayStation on steroids, yeah? But they'll drive it, the theoretical components, and they'll get feedback data from it to correlate to that computer fluid dynamics. Then we'll put it into the wind tunnel in a 50% model, and we'll have to be able to 3D visualize that data. And then we'll send it to the engineers. My engineers will will use a CAD system, make it a reality. We'll get it manufactured, send it to the track, and we'll paint it yellow, and we'll send it around the track, and we'll see that the flow of the air correlates to what we saw in the wind tunnel, correlates to CFD. And if all of that is vaguely close, then you'll get fairly good results at the track. Happy Ferrari people there, which is same as last weekend. But the point here is that it's all data-based. Very quick turnaround. So this whole loop can take down to a week. Yeah. Sometimes it's longer. If you want to do a brand new front wing, it'll take maybe a couple of months. But it's very, very fast. And and the last little pictures, sometimes it's playing a little bit of whack-a-mole. You fix something else goes wrong, and so on. So you're constantly trying to chase that until you get that perfect correlation. So what I'm here to talk to you about is the F1 mindset. The whole point, which is quite relevant to what we're trying to do, everything that we heard today from some fantastic speakers, and I think we're all talking the same language. We all want to try and get to the same place. We all want to try and get things fast to the front line, to the people who need it, in the right condition, for what they want to use. Yeah? And a lot of us have felt the frustration of there's too much data, there's too much paperwork. It's all been said today. Too many barriers. And ultimately, what you're trying to do is don't forget the purpose of why we're here. And in F1, we have one purpose, one KPI, is a stopwatch. How much faster can I make that car go around this track from the work I'm doing? And everybody turns up to work in the factory wanting to be a world champion. And it's up to the leaders, the people in this room, yeah, who are the ones who set the behaviors, the values, how we relate to this, how we get rid of I think Mark and Graham were talking about getting rid of the barriers, yeah, for how we achieve this. And F1 are very, very good at this. We literally, anything that gets in the way of it, out. Nope, you were dealing in prototypes all the time until you get to something fairly good, and then you start doing some of the documentation. But it's literally get it fast to the front line, talk to the pilot, always, the driver, always feedback. So some of these things, and I can't go through all of them, unfortunately, because we've only got 5 minutes left, but the part of the mindset is that you build trust, not fear. A lot of companies, and this is not just particular to defense, is that a lot of companies have people who are fearful for sticking their hand up. You have to have psychological safety in your companies. And again, it's the people in this room who set those values, those behaviors. You have to be able to give people the ability to be able to stick their hand up, say that silly idea, but give them trust, yeah? So that we can do that whole design, build, race, and optimize. Then you have to build on that trust. You want to build on that psychological safety. You want to have people comfortable, the whole team be comfortable working together. Yeah, get people together. You know, there's so many in the defense world. There's so many people working apart. Everybody on teams, video calls, and so on. Get them all together. If they're working together, they get to know each other. They've got that trust, then that link between them. Not that I've just done my job and it's ready and I can go home now. It's like you don't want to let the team down. Now, to kind of just put it all together in a little bit of an infographic, inspired by this gentleman here doing the graphics for us. So we relentlessly want to drive the marginal gains on this. Every tiny little thing helps. You know, it's not just that I've done just a good enough job, good enough for government work, I think was what we used to use. We constantly analyze, how can I make it better all the time? Yeah? But within obviously a limit. Resilience is not a mindset, a trait. You want to basically, you want to fail fast, but fail forwards. Always learn from things. It's not about we failed and start finger pointing. No, we want to be able to be comfortable saying like, right, we failed, this is not good, but we're learning from it. How can we fix that? Root cause analysis. Not just hiding from the fact that something went wrong and we only want to pass good information up the chain. It's like, this failed, but we know what we've done. This is going to make it better. Leadership, the people in this room especially, are the ones who get rid of the obstacles. Any obstacle, any process, any kind of, all these kind of little silly things that come in companies that get in the way, you know, designed by committee. How many meetings do we have to make a decision? And it goes back to the trust thing. Empower people, empower especially the young people, the people who've got all the good ideas who come into it. And coming back to the psychological safety, I can't emphasize this enough. If you empower young people especially, they are going to be the ones who are going to be running with the ball. And we're going to be the one empowering them. It's not the leaders who have to always make the decisions. We've got teams around us, like I think that gentleman this morning said about Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs also said that I hire bright people to come and tell me the answers, not the problems. And and also it helps, psychological safety helps unlock, you know, honesty, ideas, be able to have that open conversation amongst your team, to be able to say like what went badly, what can we do about it, not just, you know, pat each other on the back because we did a good job. Being able to always analyze, especially I'm sure a lot of you have been in the military, you know, we always debrief after every mission. What went wrong? What could we have done better? And we're dealing with people's lives here, so it's always that's always quite important. So, final thought, change before you have to, said by Jack Welch, but ultimately it's a mindset, the behaviors that we do, how we set them up, how we deal with our teams, and the kind of things that the kind of culture that we put into companies. So that's pretty much it. I hope it was of some use.